abortion itself is slavery, especially for women, because the psychology of accepting evil changes a woman entirely at her core.
We are here in Moscow, Russia, and as you know from the last couple of shows, Moscow has moved, particularly in the last 5 years, toward a much more pro-life country, from 2.5 million abortions a year to 500,000, literally, in just a few years. It's unbelievable, and part of that success, of course, is not only the government taking a serious role looking at demographics, not only the church taking on the role itself, but also activists. Russia has its own version of Lila Rose, and her name is Natalia Moskvitna, and she's with us today. Natalia, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And let's begin, as we always do, with the sign of the cross. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. First of all, it's very beautiful to meet you, and it is great to be here in Moscow in Russia, and I want to learn lots about your work.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say to you, welcome to Russia. Here we say Mother Russia, and rightly so, because we have a very large population. And of course, we would like it to grow even more. And my organization, which is called Women for Life, has already existed for 10 years. In February, it will be 10 years. We're practically on the eve of it. I myself have 4 children. And so to speak, the reason for creating the organization was my children, because when I was 20, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, but I was sent for an abortion. I come from a family of doctors. My mother is an obstetrician and gynecologist, and my father was also a doctor. He is no longer with us now. He has passed away. But a family of doctors has a special attitude toward all medical issues. So when I was told I needed to terminate the pregnancy, I started to resist. At that time, they told me that my daughter's heart wasn't beating. But now my daughter is 19, she's a student at Moscow State University, and I'm happy that back then I stood up to the system, to the abortion mentality in our country. My second child, I got pregnant again 2 years later. And with my second child, I was told there was a high risk of having a baby with Down syndrome. And that too, well, was kind of a hint that I shouldn't continue with this pregnancy. But I didn't tell anyone about it and made the decision myself to have this child. The baby was born healthy, and literally 5 months later, I got pregnant with my third child. And they told me that this wasn't a baby, it was a polyp, a consequence of the second birth. And they suggested I get a cleaning procedure. In our country, abortion is called a cleaning. And, somehow as a woman, I intuitively felt that something wasn't right here. Even though I didn't know I was pregnant, I said that I would come back to the doctor a little later and double check. And when I came back to the same doctor a month later, they confirmed that it wasn't a pregnancy, it was a consequence of childbirth, and referred me for a cleaning procedure. And when I went to another doctor, I was told that I was pregnant, and they suggested I have an abortion because it had only been 5 months since I gave birth. Having been referred for an abortion 3 times before the age of 25, one way or another, I realized that something was wrong and that Russian women need support in their right to motherhood.
It's almost like the doctors want to almost force you to have an abortion outside of your own will.
I think this is a kind of abortive mindset that has developed over years of abortion legalization. This has influenced the mentality. I wouldn't single out doctors in particular, fathers of children, older women who are supposed to become grandmothers, and employers as well.
You have a very personal story that brings you to promotion of life, defense of life, and really defense of women in a way. You've had some incredible initiatives that have really helped to foster this culture of life inside of Russia. Tell us about your favorite one of those, the one that you most love.
All these people live in our country and consider abortion almost a form of freedom. Now I have 4 children and I decided to help. And for 10 years now, I have been helping other women. Thanks to the foundation, more than 9,000 babies have been saved from abortion. From the very beginning, we simply took each pregnant woman and offered her a psychologist, a doctor for a second opinion, a lawyer, financial assistance, cribs, strollers. Basically everything you might need when you find out you're pregnant. But we realized that it was like fighting windmills. You endlessly look for these strollers and cribs, search for money so that a woman isn't afraid to be left alone with a baby in her arms. But ultimately, laws need to be passed, and the medical community needs to be retrained. And we started to focus on that closely.
In Russia, for a long, long time, there was this anti-child mentality. We don't want children, and it's bad. But Russia really has resurrected from that. I live in Canada, and I'm in America all the time. And there's very much an attitude of, if you have a large family, people say, oh, how could you do that? You're so selfish and you're harming the planet. Here, it's totally different. They love kids. Everybody is about loving children. How did that happen? How did that change from being like we are now, anti-family, anti-child, to the opposite? What happened?
This is a deep philosophical and Christian question. Since the legalization of abortions, first in Soviet Russia, and then as this plague began to spread throughout the world, the mentality of society as a whole has changed. And the great misfortune is that it has especially affected women. A woman began to equate the right to an abortion with the right to freedom itself. In other words, if you can't terminate a pregnancy, it's as if you're in slavery. But what was forgotten is that abortion itself is slavery, especially for women, because the psychology of accepting evil changes a woman entirely at her core. And women have become embittered. Now, I mean, not just women, but society as a whole, and not only Russian society, but the world at large, we are seeking comfort, seeking pleasure. We are mired in hedonism. We are not Christ-centered. And this is a big problem, because we have forgotten that a child, a family, that is happiness. That is the clearest marker of happiness. Yes, maybe sometimes I won't get enough sleep. Yes, maybe I'll have less money, but what else is there to spend your money on, if not your own children? The best investment in the future is to have children. I really liked the phrase by Charlie Kirk, who said that you should have more children than you think you can afford. That's the normal philosophy of a healthy person. You can't compare money to a child, a career to a child, or any pleasures to a child. You don't get enough sleep, but your child is teething and you're happy. You don't get enough sleep, you have less money, but then he takes his first steps and you shout, look, it's his first step. It seems we've lost our frame of reference, lost our faith. But here in Russia, we are now on the threshold of new discoveries. We are rediscovering that family is the foundation, it's our base. And having many children is not something marginal. Having many children is where a family truly begins. I'm convinced that truly, in an adult sense, having children means 3 or more kids.
For U.S. residents, creating a will has never been easier. Thanks to My Legacy Will, an online platform free of charge, you can now create your own will and choose to include LifeSite news in it. Specify where your funeral will take place, the number of masses to be offered for your soul, and how your estate would be distributed. We would be deeply grateful if you remembered LifeSite news in your will. Visit mylegacywill.com/LifeSite news. Thank you for your support, and may God bless you.
One of the things you mentioned was about Christ. And one of the things in the United States, in Canada, in much of Europe, the pro-life movement there tried to be pro-life, but keep Christ out of it, keep Christianity out of it. They have things like gays and lesbians for life, or atheists for life. And here it seems that you went all in on the faith with pro-life, and that seems to have worked much, much better.
In Russia, all the organizations that advocate for life before birth are Christian organizations, and I think that's simply inseparable. And more people are joining the pro-life movement in Russia, but usually it's a one-way path. Even if you accept this philosophy of having all the children in your family, you immediately become part of the church. It's a single chain of events that should happen in the life of any healthy person.
One of the truly remarkable things here in Russia is, I just learned, is that they very much encourage large families. And there's a practice that when a mother has her 10th child, that the President Putin, will give them a letter and invite the whole family to dinner and call the mother a hero. Tell us about that.
This is the Mother Heroine Award. This award existed back in Soviet Russia, and it elevates the mother heroine to a state level. It's not just something local. like your neighbors knowing you have 10 children. This is true heroism, and both the region and the entire Russian Federation should know about it. And one of the new achievements of the parent community is that this award now has different levels. In other words, it's not just the president noticing you if you have 10 children. There are different levels of the award, starting, I believe, from 5 children. Because our society is gradually moving toward accepting large families. And if a family has 5, 6, or 7 children, that also deserves attention.
One of the other beautiful things that I believe you started was a way of the patriarch to reach out to mothers.
To encourage them. Tell us about that.
Well, actually, the loudest voice in defense of the unborn has come from the Russian Orthodox Church, and probably still does. And His Holiness the Patriarch always takes note of these stories, always brings them up in his sermons, and is the most outspoken at government venues like the Federation Council and the State Duma, speaking, for example, about how maternity leave should cover those very first 12 vulnerable weeks when a woman might lose her child due to stress. He says that attention should already be paid to a pregnant woman at that stage. He speaks about removing abortions from the compulsory health insurance system. He constantly puts forward many initiatives, directing the state's focus precisely there. And here it is important to note that the president listens to this. This is just everyday routine for me and my colleagues.
Tell us, if someone comes to you because you've been presented with abortion, but they say to you, look, I'm a mom, I've got already 3 kids, we don't have enough right now, I don't see future for my children, they're gonna be poor. What am I supposed to do? How would you respond?
It seems to me that a woman generally faces this during the first 12 weeks with any child. She has this kind of tunnel vision, and society may whisper to her, hinting that there are options. It's very important to stand firm here. It's important to understand what you want yourself. In such situations, I always ask 3 questions. What happened? Why did it happen? And what should be done about it? As a rule, when a woman answers these 3 questions, she realizes herself that she wants to have this child. But she has certain barriers, financial, legal, or psychological. We will provide all the necessary specialists and can pay her a certain amount every month so that she doesn't feel afraid and can cover some basic needs. But the most important thing is that the woman makes this decision herself, because it's impossible to force someone to have this child. It's the woman's decision. As a rule, that's exactly what she wants, to have the child. But her immediate circle suggests that there might be another way to handle things.
You've had the great blessing, as many pro-lifers have all over the world, of being able to see a child whom you helped to save, who probably, without your intervention, wouldn't be alive. Tell us your favorite story about that, and give us the photo so that we can look at the one that happened with.
It's very hard to single out just one thing. There are, probably dozens of stories that have stuck in my memory. And I still keep in touch with all of these women. I would probably highlight one of the very first stories back in the Foundation's first year, when a woman reached out to us while she was in the hospital. She was expecting a child with developmental abnormalities. There were no fingers, 3 fingers were missing, and only these 2 fingers were present. And the father of the child, the one who conceived the baby, got involved with another woman and asked this new lover to beat up our client so that she would have a miscarriage, so she wouldn't carry the child to term, and there would be no evidence of their relationship. She ended up in the hospital after being beaten, and she had nowhere to go after being discharged because her mother had abandoned her upon learning that the child would have special needs. The doctors frightened her terribly, saying that the baby might die immediately after birth and that it would be extremely difficult. And she was left completely alone. At first, she lived with one of our volunteers, and this was right at the very beginning of the Foundation. You understand? It was very difficult, and we were searching for help, one person at a time. I was looking through my phone book to find someone to take her in, and in the end, she lived at my house too, and we practically went to give birth together. We went to the maternity hospital with her several times because she was having false contractions. In the end, she gave birth. Just imagine, for me, this was truly a miracle from God. She gave birth right on the Foundation's first anniversary, February 14th, 2017. I crossed myself and thought, thank God we made it through the first year. And right on this day, our dear Noshka gives birth to her first child. Bogdan Denisenko. Now he is already 8 years old. That is, he is a year younger than the fund. The fund is 9 years old, it will be 10 in February, and he will be 9 and the fund will be 10. Can you imagine?
Tell us your final thoughts for us as we are sort of leaving Russia. Tell us any closing thoughts.
There are a lot of stories about people saved by the foundation, and they can be completely different from each other. A woman at 17, a young woman, might be thinking about an abortion because her mother is pressuring her. At 42, because it's already considered late. Having a third child wasn't really common in our country for decades. And then there's, in quotes, why bring more poverty into the world? Or maybe you suddenly have a career. Or maybe the child's father suddenly ran away. The most important thing in all this moral choice is that it's hard to stand firm in your decision to have your child. This very one, not the one who will come later, but the one who is already here, already conceived. And we put forward a legislative initiative. We have helped and continue to help each individual woman. But it's very important for society as a whole to get involved in evaluating this phenomenon. What exactly is abortion and why do we need it? And we became the initiators of a law that protects women from being coerced into having an abortion. This law was first adopted 2 years ago in the Republic of Moldova and is now spreading very successfully across our country. In 2 years, it has been adopted by 25 regions of the Russian Federation. A third of the country has joined in protecting women from being coerced into abortion. For example, if I am expecting a child, no one around me, neither my employer, nor the father of the child, nor my mother and father, nor my friend, nor my coworker, has the right to tell me that I must terminate this pregnancy. I have the right to motherhood. For a long time, we thought that the right to motherhood meant the right to an abortion, but that's not the case. It turned out that it's very difficult to explain to those close to me why I want this child. But why should I have to explain? That's why the regions are joining this law. It's educational. It's not about filling the treasury or about finding someone. And then comes the shame, this person is bad. But first and foremost, so that a woman can calmly make decisions about her own motherhood. The 25th region is St. Petersburg. It's an important city in our country. They weren't afraid to assert their right to healthy motherhood in society. And I hope that our law will become federal, and very soon, literally in 2 weeks, we will be holding public hearings. Or, as they're also called, the zero readings. That is, this is what happens before the adoption of a federal law. I really hope that this law, as a new standard, will turn a page in our country where abortion was considered a right to freedom. This is indeed modern Russia, a nation where every citizen is truly valued from the very moment of their conception. They don't wait for the child to be born to hold them in their arms. If you already exist for your mom and dad, if you have already been conceived, you already have a soul, you are valued, you are protected, and your mother is given special status by the state, she is invulnerable, she is cared for.
Last question for you. Do you have any words of encouragement for mothers and pro-life activists in the West, in America, in Canada, in Europe?
Of course there are. But first of all, we actively follow what is happening with you. We find it very interesting and we regularly exchange experiences. I would wish for you not to give up. There are these words in the Gospel. No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of heaven. If you have set out on this path, you must not look back, because you will lose your way and your goal will be wrong. We must move forward, encouraging and supporting each other, praying for one another. But of course, the most important thing in any uncertain situation is have children.
Natalia, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And God bless all of you. From Russia, this is John Henry Weston. We'll see you next time.
Aloha everyone, this is Jason Jones for LifeSide News. We hope you enjoyed this video. For more content like this, check the link in the description. You can also connect with us on social media to stay up to date with the latest news on life, faith, family, and freedom. Thanks for watching, and may God bless you.